Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome again to another Talk Architecture podcast episode. Today's topic is on sensorial design, and is it different from universal design and barrier-free design? Now, I am going to propose that sensorial design is something that is an extension or a more function focus rather than just merely a sensation that you need to provoke or stimulate your emotions and the imagination using the environment. Let me give the definition of barrier free and then universal design, and also later argue for sensory or sensorial design. The other day, I made a suggestion about the new term, sensorial design. What I said was, first you have barrier-free design, then you have universal design, and now beyond that is sensorial design. Do you know what this is, and have you practiced it? It's just two people that I know from the Facebook, and these are the answers which would give you some idea what people think. Someone said, I think someone who is in the built environment profession, they said they keep changing the goalposts lah. So it becomes like a sigh or a reaction that what the hell is going on? The goalpost has been changed. And, we have to learn a new term. So somebody else also said, don't get it. Who create the terminology? And then someone else says, I cannot keep pace with all these new terms, which are sometimes a rebranding of old concepts. For example, I was taught about sustainable development in early 1980s when the word was not coined yet. I understood what it was all about then, without the fancy name, as compared to some people I heard talking about this concept now without actually understanding what it is all about. That's frustrating, isn't it? Because that's common sense, isn't it? Design is common sense. So another person agreed with that person who mentioned that. Another person who is not in the built environment profession said, wow, a new terminology, I'm so outdated. And then someone else says, I'm just going to grasp universal design and now this. Really, these things can come up, but are they really a legal requirement? But when you come to the architectural design practice, you come up with all sorts of manifestos, beliefs, and so on. It could come from non-architects, or it could come from architects. We're quite used to that in the architecture history that we learn about the masters in the last century and what we learn in school. Excuse me. So what I said is I had defined universal design solutions, but I'm going to talk about barrier-free design. Barrier-free design is basically from Satoshi Kosei in the year 2000. In one of his write-ups that accompanied with our training in United Nations Economic Social Commission Asia Pacific in the year 2000, he said basically that barrier-free design includes the principles of accessibility, usability, and safety. And barrier-free design is really useful to explain to people, especially to the non-technical people, about accessibility, safety, and usability, about how you would imagine a user be able to access to the facility, use it, and is safe when using it. And that's all to it. And then you have the universal design principles coming up with the 7 principles of equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, perceptible information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, appropriate size and space for approach and use. And I have tried to understand these principles from barrier-free design principles. When you talk about equitable use that everybody can use, you are able to market design to people with diverse abilities or needs, and that is fair to them all, that they can use it, is to do with accessibility, really. It's whether or not the door is specially made for persons with disabilities. At the back, you can't enter to the front, or you can only enter to the back, such as buses. There are designs of buses that you can only enter from the middle or the back. So the point I'm trying to say is that equitable use means that everyone can enter from the front. But at the end of the day, you can enter it. Anyone can enter it. Everyone can use the bus. There is a facility that allows everybody, including wheelchair users, to enter. So universal design principles make it much more mandatory, if you use these principles, for the service provider and the designer to include all people in their design. A lot of the UI UX designers use this in the use of the smartphone, that you want more people to be able to use it, or in the apps. There's also these other principles of flexibility in use. A left-handed person can use it, and also, of course, whatever hand you can use it. So it's flexibility in use, or an equipment you can use both hands if you wish, or it can be adaptable. So it becomes much more specific to design compared to barrier-free design. And then you have the other principles, simple and intuitive to use. So even a child can operate it. Perceptible information. The information is conveyed to you, and how to use it is easily understood. There could be, shall we say, pictograms that could be used rather than words, and which everybody know is standardized. Tolerance for error. There'll be the design in such a way that there's less chance of falling off or making an error, and you can get injured. So this is the safety factor in barrier-free design that is meant. Tolerance for error as that principle. And then low physical effort, which is I'm able to use it like I don't have strong arms to push the sliding door, but because it's designed with low physical effort principle, that I can actually also utilize or use it, the mechanism. Appropriate size and space for approach and use means accessible, and usability as well in barrier-free design. So barrier-free design principles and universal design principles are kind of close together, but universal design become much more something useful for the designer to think of things even more so, because in each principle there is an explanation. So when we get to sensorial design, and in here, this is my my comparison of universal design solutions, which is in conclusion just now, using the 7 principles of universal design and design for all. There may be solutions from landscape design of swimming pools, benches, pocket parks, pavements, and sidewalks, internal fixtures and fittings like kitchen design or balcony design that explores the UD principles, which shows the user's needs have been considered well. So I contrast this with sensory design solutions. And this is the definition that I put forward. Now, there are the definitions. I'm going to go into those definitions as well, browsing around the internet, because unlike universal design, which has been something that is enshrined in a lot of legal instruments, sensory design has not been done so. But sensory design is thought to be an extension of universal design because, as we know it, the users are a variety of users. We're not really focused on certain users yet. We focus on the physical disabled and mostly on the physical disabled persons when we talk about universal design solution, or children or elderly person, and it's mostly about the limitations, overcoming the limitations of physical access. So when it comes to sensory design solution, we are trying to, shall we say, include more people to be considered when we design something. So sensory design solutions is a user-focused approach where the design considers sensory needs more deeply, including more disabled persons with sensory challenge, hearing impaired, vision impaired, cognitive challenges, designing for persons with dementia, for example, including details and spatial solutions. So when you talk about senses, the use of smell, tactile, vision, hearing, and taste could be enhanced in design. The use of natural elements, such as plants and water, in an intentional way to aid design and show that it helps those who need it. So if you go and have a browse at what that means, sensory means the adjective sensory is an adjective, describes something relating to sensation, something that you feel with your physical senses. And another definition, sensorial, means relating to sensation or the senses. So what do people think about this? And how do you utilize sensory design and create sensory design solution? I mentioned it just now. And I mentioned that it's still relating to the users, and we're broadening. We are giving a chance for more users to be considered, and other than just more focus on physically disabled people. So I mentioned about browsing and the word sensory. So in a particular website that's called the decorativesurfaces.com, it's just any random website that pops out with the word sensory design. It says here is that architecture is an artistic and functional expression that significantly influences our daily lives. It is so much more than a simple arrangement of structures and spaces. As a discipline, it constantly seeks ways to transform the built environment with memorable sensory experiences. When we talk about sensory architecture, this perspective becomes even more relevant. So we're talking about sensory architecture. So here it describes further in the website, sensory architecture uses human senses as a means to create profound connections between people and the spaces they inhabit. As such, it explores light, sound, textures, smells, and even temperatures to impact people's perception and interaction with the environment. We know that we build these structures because human beings will interact with the environment. We learned that with the barrier-free principles and universal design principles, because that's where the premise comes from. The performance of the building and what is the building performing to or performing for. So if we're talking about green building, it has the green building agenda to have thermal comfort and to cut costs and to be sustainable. But is it addressing the human being? Because the human being is not only to do with thermal comfort. There are other things, other issues, right, that a human being need from the building. So this perception and interaction with the environment is important. This point is important about sensory architecture. These kinds of architectural works, I'm quoting from this website still, these kinds of architectural works do not seek to satisfy functional needs. Instead, they aim to awaken emotions, stimulate the imagination, and enrich our quality of life. You see, this part, I don't agree with sensory architecture or sensory design solution, that particular statement, that it does not seek to satisfy functional needs. As I explained just now, we are expanding the user's reach or the user's needs, like autistic persons needing to have a certain calming effect, the architecture needing to have a calming effect to them for their senses, whereby this one is saying you just need to awaken emotions. What does it mean really? Stimulate the imagination. You're going to use whatever color and for what purpose. So we need to have a delicate, harmonious balance for different people, especially if it's a public building. So that is where it differs, this article and what I'm trying to get at. Because the architect's role when it comes to functional needs, especially if it's a public building, you can't simply just design anyhow you like, because it needs to include all people. Obviously, this is a debate, and architects may not agree with what I'm trying to say or trying to debate from. But if you are designing a private home and you need to have it to be sensational for the owner or the client, fine and good. If you design a public building, then there's consideration needed for all to use the public building, especially if it is necessary for everyone to use that building. So people would say that museums or art galleries or certain type of building, maybe cinemas or shopping malls, maybe we can have more of this sensory architecture. But then yet again, you are excluding people if you create designs that they may, shall we say, make them not wanting to use that building. Just say the toilet is not that accessible, or there is a funny inclination that you want to sensationalize that is difficult for the wheelchair user to use, or the color is too reddish that people who are in the autism spectrum that could have a reaction to a very bright color, or the lighting is too bright and glaring and stuff like that. If you want to include more people, then you'd have to tone it down in certain of the aspects of the design. And then there is the agenda of adding nature to your design, which really help people in terms of having a calming and more balanced environment for the family to enjoy. So therefore, sensory design solutions or sensorial design is just an extension of getting more people's needs, getting a diverse group of people to be considered in architectural design. And there is a balance. There is something that you need to figure out by understanding further the needs of people. And yes, this is an agenda. And if you're complaining about this agenda, then who are you designing for? Because what is the role of an architect but to design for people inside or outside of building. So let's stop there. And as an introduction to what is sensory design or sensorial design, as an extension to universal design principles. And we could do a browse and a search for this. There's also an article in the Arch Daily regarding sensory design. It's almost to do with the senses, of course. It's always to do with a space. It's much more than just appearance, says in the archdaily.com article on sensory design architecture for a full spectrum of senses. In November 19, 2023, I quote again, a space is much more than just its appearance. Textures, smells, and sounds can strongly affect the user's experience. Based on this, sensory architecture can transform the interaction between people and the built environment into something deeper. So I just wondered what it meant by something deeper. So sometimes you would have artists involved in the design of the space to explore the intersection of space, technology, and community. For example, so under this article, using light serves as an essential medium but can create immersive public spaces. So if this is able to serve most people, and better still, all people, then it serves its purpose in sensory architecture. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.